I never know what a guy is trying to achieve by lying. And I'm a storyteller myself. I believe that a story has the right to a piece of it to be entertaining while not always being factually correct. We call it a story, though. We admit it before we tell it. If we don't admit it before we tell it, then we're lying. Then we're being dishonest. And I never know what a guy, I can never figure it out. I always want to figure it out. I want to know what everybody's thinking. I love psychology, but I particularly love the psychology of the fight game, whether it comes down to the athletes or the promotion. I got to know the story. And I'm missing that. I'm a huge fight fan, guys, but I'm missing the story. The story right now is the same thing everywhere I turn. I'm not paid enough. I'm a tough guy. That's not a story for me. A story's got the 5 W's: who, what, when, why, and where. And I really need to know the why. I got to know what your why is. I'm craving it. I'm dying to know it. Why does this matter to you? Is this a family thing? Does this matter to your mom and dad and your sister? I got to know the why. I got to know that it's important. I'm a tough guy. I want more money. It's not a story. There's nothing compelling. There's nothing captivating. That's just where we are right now. It's not even the point of the piece I'm bringing you. It's just as I look around, because we go through these waves, right? You guys will remember the money era? Remember the money era? It looks like we're coming back. We're going to revisit. History is a way of revisiting itself. It looks like we're going to revisit the money era. Every single fighter that I want the money fight. There was no such thing. You have a contract. You will get money for the fight, but it's whatever's in your contract. Like a reasonable, responsible, honest human being. That's what you should expect and nothing more. You wouldn't even ask for it if you were reasonable, responsible, and trustworthy. You would just turn the contract that you've already agreed on. We had to go through this money fight thing. Now we are in, literally, this is the argument, guys. Pay me more money. I'm tough. And then some guys will get really sophisticated with it. Pay me more money. I'm tough. And I knocked out 2 guys. Like, they'll start to get more specific. And it was the last 2 guys. I don't care if you knocked out the last 5 guys or you knocked out 10 guys, but it was 14 fights ago. I just don't care. What is the story as to why we're here tonight? Because I already paid my $50 for each one of those fights. Watched it every single time. Why am I paying it for this one? What is the story for this one? And it can't be the result of the last one. That's just not interesting. Simple as that. Floyd Mayweather comes out after the fight and rewrites history. I just don't know why. And Floyd's done a number of things very well. He's even got his marking. He used to be Floyd Pretty Boy Mayweather. Pretty, it just didn't get over. First off, he wasn't that pretty, and he wasn't a boy. Right? It was just a problem. It's just a problem when you call yourself a boy and all of a sudden you're in your 30s. It's just one of those things. So changed it to money. Started adapting some characters that were getting over from the rap industry. That's who he idolized, or at least that's who he emulated. He started putting out fight videos like they were rap videos. They were fantastic. He's wearing fur jackets. You know, he got on the necklace. He's peeling out money. I mean, it was just one of these things that we'd never seen. What does that have to do with punching somebody? It had nothing. It had to do with entertainment. Floyd was entertaining us. I appreciate it. But after every single fight, Floyd attempts to rewrite it. I don't know why. I don't know why after Conor McGregor, he couldn't just tip his hat and say, man, that was a tough son of a bitch. What a street fight I just got myself in. I found a way to win. I gave up some weight. I took a risk that no other boxer has taken. It wasn't just Conor, 2-division champion, that came over and did something he didn't do. No other boxer had the balls to go take on a 2-division champion who was bigger and younger than him. Floyd could have told the truth. Had he told the truth, we would have all praised him. Because he lied and said he carried Conor, we now, one half of the viewing audience, which was MMA, must dig in to back our guy. We never would have done that if Floyd told the truth, because the truth was a very courageous, very beautiful thing. Many people were attempting to set the narrative that Conor was the one taking the risk, coming over to a sport that he had never done against a guy who had never lost on it. That was true, but it was also true that Floyd was the only boxer with the balls to go take on a sitting world champion who outweighed him and was, to his youth, almost in half, by the way. Almost in half. Could have been his father. Floyd could have told that story. Now, Floyd is coming out after the Logan fight And he's saying, I did not train for that fight and I had no strategy. Now, I don't know that being a dum-dum embarrasses Floyd. I don't know that it does. It would embarrass me. Floyd got caught and he was illiterate and he couldn't read, and some of these things happened, and it started this big thing with he and 50 Cent, right? If you guys will recall this turned into a whole public thing when those guys had their falling out. That would embarrass me. I would quickly go get a tutor. I'd quickly go and correct that, right? If I had some of these deficits. For Floyd to go into a fight that he charged us for, and then to say that he did not have a strategy and or train for it, sounds as though he owes us a refund. It sounds very dishonest. Now, the reason we don't demand a refund or we don't cry fraud, and this has been tested before, guys. This has been tested by Oliver McCall. Oliver McCall got in the ring and had a mental breakdown. He broke down into tears and bawled, and the referee had to step in and wave the fight off. It wasn't about the punches at all, and Oliver was just in there crying. He had a mental breakdown. And the promoter tried to not pay him. Promoter said, I paid you to fight, and you did not fight. By any stretch of the imagination, do we imagine you with 16-ounce gloves on that never brought him up and never moved it in a forward motion that you were fighting? I'm not paying you. That went all the way to court, and there was some kind of a settlement reached. I believe. This is a long time ago. I'm coming off the top of my head here. This is about 22 years ago. But it got tested, and Oliver did get some money, but I don't think he got it all. I think the court somehow kind of saw what the promoter saw, but ultimately determined, hey, promoter, you didn't give any money back to the viewing audience. You told the viewing audience that you were going to give him a fight. You're now representing that you did, but you're telling the principal that he didn't? Can't be both at the same time. So what do you want to do here? And they work something out. But I bring that to you because the only reason we're not upset and yelling, give us a refund. Floyd, you're saying you didn't fight? Great, I paid for a fight. Pay me. Pay me my money back. The only reason we're not doing it is we know he's lying. I just don't know why. Sometimes the truth, right? Sometimes the truth will set you free, all times. And for Floyd to come out and say, that guy was big and he's a lot better than I thought he was. We're all done here. You showed respect. You showed sportsmanship. You told the truth. You're leaving. And you just passed the torch, at least in some fashion. In some fashion, you just shined up your opponent. The right thing to do. It's not what Floyd did. And speaking of Floyd, Henry Cejudo comes out, and Henry says he wants to fight Floyd, and he'll beat Floyd in 2 rounds. And that fight is not interesting. Henry versus Ryan Garcia, it's not interesting. I find Henry to be fairly interesting lately. I think that Henry has embraced the entertainment era. I think that what Henry has done post-career, I don't talk about guys that retired years ago, ever. Neither do you. Neither do the dirt sheets. Neither do the websites. Neither do the Helwanis and the Ramondis and the Josh Grosses of the world. They all talk about Henry still. I mean, Henry has done something very, very right. You talk about Henry. You talk about Khabib. You talk about St. Pierre. Give me another one, guys. I'm all ears. Give me another one that you talk about. Give me another fighter that you talk about that left on top. Henry, Khabib, St. Pierre. Who's the 4th? Go ahead. Who's the 5th? Nobody. Nobody. So what I'm attempting to prove for you is that I find Henry very interesting. I find nothing interesting about Henry boxing. I want to know who Ryan Garcia was if he walked in my kitchen and slapped me in the face right now. I would have the slightest idea. My wife, hey, who was that slapped me? I don't know. He was pretty quick, though, and really small. Floyd versus Henry, not going to go 2 rounds. This is the statement that Henry made. Obviously, as a way to gain some attention and gain him a little bit of steam and try to end up in there with Floyd. First off, I don't have any evidence of Henry's boxing. I've heard that he did it as a kid. I'll take him at his word. I know during his MMA career, what he credited for changing his career was karate, not boxing. And what if he doesn't? Right, that's the problem with making those claims. There seems to be no retail compensation given to your paying customer. And in any other walk of life, there would be. There is no restaurant you can go in where they tell you it's a 30-ounce steaks and it comes out 18 ounces and you have to pay the same price. There is no house you could buy that they tell you is going to be 2,500 square feet, and when you get ready to move in, it's 1,900, and you got to pay the builder the same price. So when Henry comes out and says, I'm going to stop him in 2 rounds, my question in return is, what if you don't? What if you don't? What happens to us, the ones that bought it? Because it's a double-edged sword. Henry, if you can stop Floyd in 2 rounds, I'm not watching it. 2 rounds equals 6 minutes. I can't justify a party. I can't go get 5 or 6 pizzas and have some buddies over. I can't do it for 6 minutes. Secondly, what if you don't? Now you lied. Thought you were getting out of there. I mean, do you see the problem? Do you see where it just starts to be a little bit weird? And do you see where if you juxtapose it against the absolute truth? Floyd is a former champion who doesn't want to do his sport anymore. I'm a former champion. I don't want to do mine. Floyd stopped doing because professional boxing with professional boxers is too goddamn hard. I quit doing mine because it's too goddamn hard. Why don't we fight? Is there anything there? Is there anything interesting about a former UFC champion against a former boxing champion? I'm a little bit smaller than him, which is a little bit different than the way we've always done this MMA versus boxer. It's always been the boxer that had to be smaller. I'm going to come out there and be smaller. However, I'm also half his age. Is anybody interested in this? And while that would not be the greatest sales pitch, by the way, I'm asking you which is better. And the answer is the second one. The second one is better. If you're going to beat him in 6 minutes, I can't justify watching that. If you don't beat him in 6 minutes and you just lied to me, but I paid to see you beat him in 6 minutes, what do you do in return for me? The customer who was promised something by you, who I paid. Do you see where it becomes a problem? And the truth always sets you free. I don't know how I would do with Floyd. I know with an 18-year-old Floyd, I wouldn't have done very well. I think he's slowed down. I think he's closer to being in the rules of USADA than he ever has been in the rest of his career, which would be a hot statement and a goddamn true one. There's a lot of things that you could say to build and promote a fight that operate with the confines of being accurate. And guys miss this one a lot when they talk about how easily they could beat somebody. What if you're right? Why would we want to see that? It's a theory that I'm reminding you of because it was tested in the early 90s between DirecTV, promoter Don King, and athlete Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was so protected, they would bring in such bums to face him because that was the dirty, filthy boxing model that Mike was getting them out of there in the very first round. And he did it 4 times in a row. There was nothing to see. You put up with a painful boxing card. You put up, what's that guy, that drunk, Larry something or other, the drunk guy that drinks bourbon all night and then kind of stumbles around the ring? Larry Merchant. You put up with Lampley. You pray to goodness that they're going to have Kellerman there, but he only shows up once every 10th time. And then you see a ring walk with some kind of like a tribute to the nations of the fights, their anthems. These things take 30 and 40 minutes once they've left the locker room. Then you have less than 3 minutes of action. I mean, you see where this becomes a problem. After the 4th time that Mike did it, DirecTV, Don King came out and told the world, this fight will leave the first round or we'll give you half your money back. That's not a sustainable way to do business, by the way. But that is how bad it was that these fights were getting stopped. And I only bring that to you because when I tell you it's a problem that some guy says he's going to stop somebody early, it is a problem. As many fight fans tell you, we're just here to see stoppages. You're not. You're not. Biggest draw we've ever had, George St. Pierre, didn't have a lot of stoppages. The guy that you're all claiming you want to come back, Khabib, he ended up having a few more stoppages than not later in his career, but they weren't like some early on thing. They weren't on your fight toe-to-toe, which is the narrative in this space everybody wants to see. They were all on the ground, which is where all the fights end up going. I only share for you that the narrative and the reality are very different things. Which one do you want to be part of?